Members of the jury, Charles Jones was a prominent drill rapper out of Jacksonville, Florida. He was known as Julio Foolio, Six, the Big Rapper. He had drill raps on Instagram, on YouTube. He had millions of hits and followers. He was well known in Jacksonville. They hunted him. They stalked him, they found him, they targeted him, and they gunned him down. That is the only reason all 5 of those individuals were here in Tampa, Florida on June 22nd, and then the early morning hours of June 23rd of 2024. The defendant, Alicia Andrews, seated over there, along with her fellow co-defendants, her fellow co-conspirators, Rashad Murphy, Davion Murphy, Sean Gathright, and her boyfriend Isaiah Chance. That is the only reason they came down to Tampa, was for that one specific purpose, to hunt and gun down Charles Jones. This was a rival gang war that has been going on in Jacksonville for years and years. You have seen those drill rap videos. You have seen the type of videos that they are. And Charles Jones came down to Tampa to celebrate his birthday with friends. Charles Jones had posted online drill rap videos disrespecting the other side, disrespecting ATK, disrespecting members of 1200. And the other side did the same thing. You saw those videos from Yungeen Ace, and the ones produced from ATK, and the ones produced by 1200. Both sides made fun of other members that have been gunned down in this horrific gang war that has been going on in Jacksonville for years. And one of the songs that Charles Jones made was When I See You, specifically making fun of the town center shooting where Yungeen Ace was shot and his little brother killed, and 2 other members of their group were killed, including someone who went by the name of 23. Who was close to Isaiah Chance, the defendant's boyfriend of over 3 years. They had had intimate conversations about this rival gang war that had occurred.
Overruled.
They had had, the evidence shows, her messaging on her phone shows that she had had conversations with Charles Jones where she had been told by him about these deaths. They discussed the town center and how he could not go there anymore because what had happened at the town center. That is where 23 was killed. That is where Yungeen Ace was shot multiple times. There had been conversations on October 8th between her and her boyfriend Charles Jones. You know what happened on October 7th. Charles Jones was shot. There was an attempt on his life in Jacksonville. And you have seen ballistic evidence in this case that ties the people in this murder and this conspiracy directly to the attempt on his life in October of 2023. Sean Gathright, who is the arms person, who is the arms supply person, who supplies the weapons, who has the weapons and takes them away and transports them in the Chevy Impala and then transports them in the Toyota 4Runner and then eventually to his house. When he gets stopped in that Toyota 4Runner, there are rifle shell casings that are tested and compared to the shell casings that are collected from the October 2023 attempted murder, aggravated battery of Charles Jones that happens in Jacksonville, Florida. And it is the same gun that fires those shell casings, the ones that are found in Sean Gathright's vehicle and the ones that are found at the attempted murder scene of Charles Jones in October in 2023. They tried to kill him before and were not successful. And you heard that Charles Jones got on the internet and posted a video on the internet and taunted them after it happened, saying that they didn't get him. They planned to murder him, and this time they were not going to miss. This is a well-orchestrated, planned, first-degree premeditated murder. State's Exhibit 22. This is at the Home to Suites, and we put many clips together, but this is Charles Jones, and this is his black Dodge Charger parked in front of the Home to Suites, and his girlfriend is behind him in her car. And you can clearly see that he is seated in the front passenger seat of that Dodge Charger. In the second clip, you're going to see at this location, this is the first time that black Chevy Impala carrying 3 armed and covered gunmen pull into that parking lot, and they don't go in front of where Charles Jones' vehicle is. You see them turn to the right. They are avoiding the line of sight of Charles Jones. They want to make sure that they get him. They never pull into the line of sight of Charles Jones and his party. Charles Jones now is laying in that front passenger seat with his feet up. The next clip that you see in State's Exhibit 22 is of the car pulling up of his friend. That's Typha McCrae, and in his vehicle is Camilla Bentley and Aaliyah Albritton. They pull up next. That's the next thing that happens in the sequence of events. The black Chevy Impala has already pulled in. It is now circling the parking lot so it can stay out of view. The next clip you're going to see is Typha McCrae and his girlfriend, Aaliyah Albritton, get out and go to the bathroom. Camilla Bentley gets into the front passenger seat. The next sequence is the silver Chevy Cruze. We all know who is in the silver Chevy Cruze. It is the defendant along with her good boyfriend, Isaiah Chance. They circle, they don't go to the right, they directly go by the cars of the victim and the victim's party. These are cars that they are very well familiar at this point because they have seen these cars at 2 other locations. They saw it first at Teasers and they saw it at Truth 18. It is not a coincidence that the silver Chevy Cruze followed them to this location and then pulls off into another parking lot while it waits for that black Chevy Impala with the 3 armed and masked gunmen to get there. They are waiting for the gunmen to get there. And when the black Chevy Impala gets there, they come and they directly look for the victim and the victim's vehicles. Again, State's Exhibit 22, you're going to see that silver Chevy Impala with the defendant and her boyfriend circle around, and they are going to the exact area where the black Chevy Impala is. The second clip, after they have gone to where that black Chevy Impala is and the black Chevy Impala has parked, they then are now leaving, and they again are going for a direct line of sight where the victim and his friends are parked and sitting in their cars. State's Exhibit 22, you're going to see At this very moment, they can see where the victim is. That silver Chevy Cruze is passing where the victim is seated in that passenger seat. They are the eyes. They are the surveillance tracking team of this mission. And make no mistake, this is a mission. The assault hit team is the black Chevy Impala with 3 armed and masked men. 2 of the men are having assault rifles. Their faces are covered. One of them has all black. The other has a white ski mask. And then the third shooter has a Glock with a switch that makes it a fully automatic gun and a weapon. You're going to see in this next clip that the first person to fire is the person with the firearm. And it's very clear what person they are shooting at, what person they are targeting. They are targeting the victim, who is the passenger in the black Chevy Impala. They don't care about any of those other cars that flee and crash. In this next clip, you're going to see that they are specifically targeting the victim. They follow his car. They continue to fire upon his car. That is the only car that they are interested in, because the person who has taunted them, the person who they unsuccessfully tried to kill months ago, survived. And now they are going to ensure that he dies. State's Exhibit 22. They are heavily armed. They are prepared. They are masked. They brought artillery with them. They are ready to kill Charles Jones. They didn't just kill Charles Jones. When they came to Tampa and they shot up that parking lot, there were many victims. There were 2 people that were in that car with Charles Jones. Xavier Edwards was shot. You see his injuries in this photograph. Gino Norris was shot, not in a gang. Law enforcement very clear on that. Another victim in this crime. Camilla Bentley, also shot, not in a gang. They didn't care who they hurt. They just wanted to kill Charles Jones. They weren't the only victims in this case. They shot up a public parking lot in a hotel that had guests, that had families, that had people that were dropping off their children at University of South Florida, that is just across the street from Fowler Avenue, the other road that intersects McKinley where those hotels are. They shot up hotel rooms that had families in it, husband and wives and children. They didn't care who they hurt. Their focus was on Charles Jones, and they wanted to make sure that they killed him. In order to prove murder in the first degree, the judge just read to you what those instructions are. This is what the state has to prove, that Charles Jones is dead. That element, we only have to prove 3 elements beyond and to the exclusion of reasonable doubt. Charles Jones is dead. That has been proved beyond a reasonable doubt. The death was caused by the criminal act of Alicia Andrews. That has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt. There is a mountain of evidence, and we're going to talk about the principal instruction, because she is a principal to this crime, and you treat her as if she had done everything her fellow co-defendants did. You put her in exactly the same shoes. She is criminally responsible for everything that her fellow co-defendants did in this particular case, and that there was a premeditated killing of Charles Jones. An act includes a series or related actions arising from and performed pursuant to a single design or purpose. Killing with premeditation is a killing after consciously deciding to do so. The decision must be present in the mind at the time of the killing. The law does not fix the exact period of time that must pass between the formation of the premeditated intent to kill and the killing. The period of time must be long enough to allow reflection by the defendant. The premeditated intent to kill must be formed before the killing. Premeditation can happen in seconds. There is no fixed time. There just has to be a conscious reflection by the defendant, where they reflect upon it and form that premeditated intent to kill. We are well beyond that in this case. This is a planned first-degree murder. Before they even got into that black Chevy Impala, they had planned to do this. They had got weapons together. They knew what sort of equipment they wanted. Not only did they have the type of weapons that fire rapidly, they intended to get away with this murder. They got brass catchers. They put those on the AR rifles, and none of the brass, none of the spent shell casings were left behind because they were collected. That is sophistication. That are people that planned to commit this crime and planned to get away with it. The question of premeditation is a question of fact to be determined by you as jurors. From the evidence, it will be sufficient proof of premeditation if the circumstances of the killing and the conduct of the accused convince you beyond a reasonable doubt of the existence of premeditation at the time of the killing. The proof in this case is overwhelming, and you can see it yourself. Those videos are evidence. It is direct evidence. It is captured on video for all of you to see it. You saw what happened. You saw that they tracked and they stalked and they hunted that victim down in Florida, here in Tampa. He posted where he was going to be on his Instagram. She follows his Instagram. She doesn't like him. It's clear from her messages that she does not like Charles Jones. Why in the world would she need to follow him? She follows his Instagram. And on Instagram, well before he came to Florida, over 7 days before he came, he is posting that he is going to be at Teasers on June 22nd between 8 and 3 a.m. He also posts that he is going to be at Teasers on June 22nd. He is posting exactly where he is going to be. That is the reason why they are coming to Tampa on June 22nd of 2024. That is the only reason that they are coming to Tampa. She books that Airbnb. She does it on June 21st of 2024. She is trying to book the Airbnb. She's not the actual one that books it because the co-defendant, Rashad Murphy, ends up doing it. This falls through. But it is clear that she is in the loop. It is clear that she is participating. She is the first one that tries to book the Airbnb in Tampa. It's very clear. This happens on June 21st of 2024. We had Detective Ramos say to you exactly where she was when she did that. The judge read to you the date of the crime, and for count 2, for the conspiracy count, the dates that we have to prove are between June 21st and June 23rd of 2024. And there are several locations that are involved in the conspiracy, but the first one is where she is located when she sends this. And she is not with the defendant, Isaiah Chance. Isaiah Chance is miles away on his own device, nowhere near her, when she herself is trying to book all of them an Airbnb. And there is a reason why they have her booking the Airbnb. There is a reason why, when she doesn't get the Airbnb, that Rashad Murphy uses the shared phone that he does of his girlfriend, Charmaine Steiger. Because when Julio Foolio, when Charles Jones gets killed, who do you think the primary suspects are going to be? It is going to be the high-profile rival gangs that are feuding with him online. So Isaiah Chance can't book the Airbnb with his phone. So Rashad Murphy doesn't use a phone. He's known as Ghost. He uses the shared phone of Charmaine Steiger because they know when law enforcement officers come looking and they know who's certified in a gang, that the first thing that they are going to look for is the usual suspects in this rival gang war. So Charles Jones isn't going to use his own phone. He's going to use the cover of his girlfriend. Just like Rashad Murphy isn't going to use his own phone, he's going to use Charmaine Steiger's phone. This is what they do because they want to ensure after this happens that they don't get caught. They also get rid of all of their phones because they don't want any sort of evidence to be linked and tracked back to them. So she says on June 21st of 2024 that she wants to book an Airbnb. She wants more than one bedroom, like two. And that doesn't fall through, or that falls through. And so Rashad Murphy on his phone, this is the phone that is confiscated in Rashad Murphy's possession when he flees from law enforcement in that silver Chevy Cruze, when he is found later by the Gwinnett County Police Department when they have put out an alert for that vehicle. And so he is the one on his phone, the extraction from his phone, there is the actual booking of the Airbnb that they end up using. And it is no mistake, it is no coincidence that this Airbnb on Gazebo Pond Lane is within miles, just a couple of miles of where Charles Jones, the victim in this case, is shot and killed. It is in no coincidence that that Airbnb is only within a couple miles of the two very clubs that he is going to be performing at or going to be at in Tampa, at Teasers and at Truth 18. And so the other location for count 2 of the indictment that we have to prove is that it was within a 10-mile radius of both Truth 18 and of Teasers. And those addresses are both in here listed as well. 4819 East Bush Boulevard, as well as 9700 North Nebraska North Nebraska Avenue. Both of those locations are within Hillsborough County. The other address as part of this conspiracy is the Airbnb itself, that they were within a 3-mile radius of 3703 Gazebo Pond Lane, Tampa, Florida, County of Hillsborough. And the last and final address of that conspiracy is 11606 McKinley Drive, which is the address of the Home to Suites, as well as the address of Rashad Murphy, that phone, when this Airbnb is booked. And that is another Jacksonville address that you will see on this date of the crime, where it says, sorry, I'm going to go to the address, 301 Caravan Circle, Jacksonville County, also state of Florida. And the final one is the house of Sean Gathright, 13751 Victoria Lakes Drive, Circle, Jacksonville County, Jacksonville, Florida, also County of Duval. Those are all the addresses of where acts that occurred in this conspiracy. And that is what we have to prove, and that is what we have proven. That is why Detective Ramos testified to exactly where this device was when they sent out this request to book the Airbnb and had it confirmed. And he had to send his driver's license to in order to secure and book that Airbnb. You have seen the search warrant that was executed on Sean Gathright's house afterwards. And these firearms, there were 2 assault rifles that were taken. And they were collected and they were sent to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement for testing. You saw the brass catchers, evidence in this case. All of this leads back to this first-degree premeditated murder and conspiracy to kill Charles Jones. What you saw in the video, the type of firearms that were used in this case, 2 of the shooters had assault rifles that had brass catchers on it, and they lead directly back to Sean Gathright. His path was followed. We know where he went in the black Chevy Impala after leaving that Airbnb. There is video evidence of all 4 defendants, Davion Murphy, Isaiah Chance, Sean Gathright, and Alicia Andrews all were at that Tampa Airbnb. The only one who wasn't was Rashad Murphy. But because he took an Uber, we know he was at that Tampa Airbnb as well, because we see the Uber dropping them all off at Sean Gathright's house. And you heard the testimony from the Uber driver, and he testified that the 3 people that he picked up at that Airbnb are the exact same 3 people that he dropped off. And then after we see Sean Gathright leave, he's the one that takes the Chevy Impala to his grandmother's house in Auburndale. And then he switches vehicles because, again, he does not want to be caught driving the vehicle that contains the 3 shooters who gunned down Charles Jones in Jacksonville, Florida. So he switches vehicles. He leaves that vehicle at Grandma's house. And what does he do? He wipes down the entire car. He is getting rid of fingerprints. He wants to make it look like none of his friends were in that vehicle. They are very smart. They are very sophisticated. Those 2 shell casings, they are not from rifles. They were not fired by the guns that had those brass catchers on it. What those are 9mm shell casings. The only brass, the only casings that were left here at this homicide was 9mm. That firearm that had the switch that made it fully automatic, the one that you saw in State's Exhibit 22, the first gunman to fire directly at the windshield of the victim's vehicle, was a firearm. It was a 9mm, and it unloaded 31 shell casings onto the ground at that homicide scene where Charles Jones was murdered. And all of those shell casings were recovered. And you heard how 30 of them, they tried to get DNA off of them, were packaged specially and sent off to ATF. One of them was kept for Tampa Police Department to submit for analysis and comparison. And they did. They compared it to these 2 spent shell casings in the safe of Sean Gathright's house. And they are a ballistic match. You heard from Amara Drew. She testified that she compared both of those shell casings to the one that was found at the murder scene and retained by Tampa Police Department for testing. And the same firearm that fired those 2 shell casings that were ejected out of the 9mm are a match and ballistically identified to the same gun that was shot that you saw on that video, State's Exhibit 22, firing into the windshield of Charles Jones's car. You also heard about the spent shell casings that were recovered from Jacksonville, from the Toyota 4Runner of Sean Gathright. Remember all of those shell casings that were collected. State's Exhibit 50 and State's Exhibit 49A through I. Both of those shell casings were collected and submitted to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Some were from the Toyota 4Runner in that box. Do you remember the photograph of the box? And then they went and they retained from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office the shell casings that were recovered from the October 7th, 2023 attempted murder of Charles Jones. And they compared those shell casings. And those shell casings, again, analyzed by Amar Drew, and they were matched, ballistically matched to the same firearm. They both were shot by the same assault rifle. The other part of the ballistic evidence that you heard about were the fragments that were recovered from the medical examiner's office. And they were sent to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to be compared against the two rifles, the two assault rifles that were collected in this case from that safe in Sean Gathright's house. And what Amar Drew could tell you is from that fragment that one of them was found that it did not shoot that projectile. So one of them did. The other one was inconclusive, and that meant there wasn't enough detail on that projectile, that fragment that was found in the victim's body to say that it was or to say that it wasn't. So those two assault rifles absolutely can be the assault rifles that were used in this case. They match the appearance. They have the brass catchers on them that we saw was used in this crime. And because we don't have any spent casings, which again is part of their plan to make it difficult to link the firearms to this case, we cannot compare brass casings because there were none left at the scene. But there is definitely evidence in that scene in Sean Gathright's house that are connected, and those are those 9mm that were found in that safe along with those two AR rifles. That is why you heard from Amar Drew, and that is why all of that evidence was brought down from Jacksonville, because it ties these defendants to the homicide here in Tampa and the attempted homicide of the victim in 2023. These were all of the type of ammunition that was consistent and capable of being fired in those assault rifles, also found in Sean Gathright's home. And when we talk about planning and conspiracy, what we're talking about, we have the video evidence to prove and show all of it, just how well coordinated. Not only was it planned ahead of time, not only did they talk about it ahead of time, there was coordination each and every time. This was a mission to kill Charles Jones, and there was an assault hit team, and there was a surveillance team that the defendant was a part of. And again, when we talk about using her for cover, she was a part of it. She was an active participant. She's not just sitting in the car. She has a role to play. Her play is that she is going to give Isaiah Chance cover. They know who Isaiah Chance is. You heard from Robert Howard there. If he would have saw or recognized Isaiah Chance alone in the parking lot in Tampa in the same vicinity of his friend Charles Jones, they absolutely would have known that they were in danger. He wants to blend. That's what she is. She's covered. That's what they do. They use their girlfriends, and she is an active, willing participant, and she has protected him in that interview with law enforcement and on that stand today, and she continues to protect him. And the judge will read to you an instruction, and she will let you know that once the defendant takes the stand, you treat her like any other witness in this case. and you determine whether or not she is credible. You determine whether or not she is lying on that stand when she tells you that she had no idea of what was going on. Common sense does not leave this courtroom. There is no way that a plan this well executed, this well planned, that those killers would have brought in someone who had no idea of what was going on. She is a trusted confidant of her boyfriend, Isaiah Chance. You heard those messages. You know not only is she a trusted confidant and that she knows all of the details of the gang war, that she has been personally affected by this, and there is no love lost for Julio Foolio. Her boyfriend that she loves and that she is willing to lie for and ignore what her attorneys are telling her to do and still call him and talk to him 5 times a day, sometimes more, about this case, it is because she is still in a relationship. She is doing that knowing that every single one of those jail phone calls are recorded. That is how much she loves him. That is how much she is willing to protect him. You see this chart. They went and they stalked that victim at more than one location. And you heard from Detective Ramos, and you heard from their own experts, Thomas Pullen, that all of the phones belonging to Isaiah Chance and Sean Gathright, that they were tracked, I'm sorry, not Isaiah Chance, Davion Murphy and Sean Gathright, that they were tracked to teasers earlier that day, before the victim was there, that they were going up and down Hillsborough. You know what that is? They're casing it. They want to know where is a good opportunity to shoot and kill the victim. That is why they are there before. The phone evidence in this case is overwhelming. That with the video evidence, you got to see with your own eyes exactly what happened in this case. And at this first location off of North Nebraska, you can see exactly by this diagram where everyone went. Those 4 cars represent the victim's vehicles, and the blue represents Isaiah Chance and the defendant, and they are the surveillance stalking team. The black Chevy Impala, it never gets to the scene first in any 3 of those locations: Teasers, Truth 18, and Home to Sweets. And they only ever go in the parking lot. This isn't a reconciliation. This isn't a romantic getaway. This isn't a time for the 2 of them to get back together. There is one purpose, and that is to find Charles Jones. They never go inside. They never talk to a bouncer. Their one job is to see when Charles Jones gets there. They walk in the parking lot. This is June in Florida, in Tampa, Florida. It is hot out. Isaiah Chance, who cares about his appearance, who wants to know what his outfit looks like, who gets into a war of words with Charles Jones online because he's accused of wearing fake designer clothes, is not going clubbing in a gray hoodie with the hoodie pulled up and a COVID mask on his face. And neither is the defendant. She's not going in some kind of track pants and a blue jean jacket clubbing in Tampa if that is their true purpose. They are wearing COVID masks so that their faces are covered, and they are appearing as a couple so that Charles Jones and his friends don't have any sort of alert or warning that the other gang is here. And the people in the black Chevy Impala never get out because they absolutely know who Rashad and Davion Murphy are. They never get out until they are ready and they know that Charles Jones are in their sights. And it is only after the silver Chevy Cruze gets there and park. And that club is packed. They have to leave. They have to circle around the parking lot because that parking lot is packed. It doesn't matter that her boyfriend doesn't like a packed club. If that were the case, they would have never even pulled in. They are there for one purpose, and that is to get eyes on the victim. And the video shows it. There is no doubt that is what happens. She is walking less than a foot away from him at all times when he is talking on their phone. It goes beyond belief that she didn't hear every single word that he said. And she is not shocked. She is not trying to walk away from him. And she certainly is not surprised because she knew it. All of the conversations about the conspiracy, they happened well before the date that we charged for that conspiracy. And you know it did. You know with your common sense that this was talked about at many locations, at many times, and many different places that we have never alleged and we will never be able to bring to you. Because
Overruled, go ahead.
the defendant will never admit what she did. She won't admit it to Detective Ramos and the detectives at the Tampa Police Department, and she's certainly not going to admit it to you, because that would mean that she is confessing to conspire in a first-degree premeditated murder. But you know that those conversations happened because of what you saw on the video. She is not surprised. She is playing her role. She is playing her part. You saw those messages between her phone and Sean Gathright. Pick up the effing phone now. Pick up the effing phone now. They are desperate for communication. To suggest to you that there wasn't an actual phone call that occurred after that second text message is preposterous. And she is seated next to him in that silver Chevy Cruze. And to suggest to all of you that you don't know exactly the type of conversation that happened in that car that she absolutely heard and knew about because she is a part of it. Your common sense tells you that. This was well planned, well executed, and they would not have brought along a girlfriend unless she served a purpose. And she did. She was their cover. And you know from the stand, she admitted what had happened on October 8th, that phone call. She had to admit it. She didn't want to admit it, just like when law enforcement officers were questioning her. When I was questioning her, she in her memory, she knows the conversations she's had with with Isaiah Chance. She knows their conversations. She knows what happened when his best friend, one of his good friends, was shot and killed on October 6th and 7th of 2023, and how upset he was. There are messages between the two of them where he is telling her how out of his mind he is with grief. And you heard her say, yeah, I had to stay away. I had to stay away. And then he's telling her to be loyal, to stay loyal. And then she is responding, don't worry, I'm straight. I will delete those messages. She is his intimate confidant. They have talked about this. And what exactly do you think that she needs to delete? What conversation could she possibly have to delete on August 8th of 2023? Charles Jones was shot on October 7th of 2023, and her boyfriend and the boyfriend's best friends are now ballistically connected to that attempted murder of Charles Jones. We know exactly what she's deleting. She's got his back. She had his back on October 8th of 2023. She had his back in that interrogation room with law enforcement where they are pressing her. And make no mistake, she knew why they were talking to her. She knew why they were questioning her. It's clear in her messaging to the person that they're making fun of law enforcement for having the wrong phone. She knows law enforcement officers are looking for her. You saw that text exchange. You saw her say, are they still there? It's very clear they're talking about police. And she's like, they still have my phone. It's just for a resisting arrest charge. Oh, too bad. They have the new phone. I don't have they didn't get the old phone, laughing my effing ASS off, right? That's consciousness of guilt evidence. There isn't any reason she needs to be laughing at law enforcement for having the phone, for having her new phone, and not having her old phone, unless the old phone has what? The old phone has evidence on it, and you heard from law enforcement, there's an Apple iCloud that she didn't count on, that they were able to get up a backup of. They're able to get a backup of her phone of every single thing, messages, thousands of messages, but the one message area that they can't get is the day of the homicide. They are able to get it off Sean Gathright's phone. That's why we know that her phone and Sean Gathright's phone are communicating desperately when the tracking of the victim is occurring. You have video evidence of Charles Jones being stalked at Teasers for silver Chevy Cruze. You have video evidence of after the silver Chevy Cruze, the black Chevy Impala appears. Same exact thing happens at Truth 18. The two places where the victim advertised that he would be on Instagram, and she follows him on Instagram. And again, the same coordination. The surveillance tracking vehicle, the silver Chevy Cruze, with again, the defendant and Isaiah Chance, her boyfriend, in that car. You know that there are communications that are not accounted for in those call detail records, that there is some other application that they are using for those calls. You heard from Detective Ramos. When that phone is up to Isaiah Chance's ear and he's walking on that phone, there isn't an attempted phone call. There isn't a missed phone call. There is no record of it. Those calls from that time period and those messaging are happening when he is in the car with her. So there is definitely another application that again shows sophistication. They do not want to be caught. They do not want to be tracked. They are very careful with what they are doing with their devices. You heard from their own expert that Davion Murphy and Isaiah Chance, they're not using their phones during the time of the homicide. And again, the same stalking that happens. The victim and his entourage get there, they go inside the club, and again, we have the blue being designated by the silver Chevy Cruze and the defendant and her boyfriend. And this is not a romantic getaway. To suggest is beyond common sense, beyond all reason. They are just walking around the parking lot. They don't make any attempt to go to the door. And the reason why the coordination of the video shows it is because the victim's party has just gone up those stairs and that they are on that second landing getting ready to enter in the club. They don't even go up to the sidewalk. They stay well in that parking lot, and they end up walking to the sign. Is a sign a tourist attraction, something of interest that they would need to go to? They are purposely avoiding that door because Isaiah Chance knows Julio Foolio. And there is no reaction by the defendant. There is no surprise. There's no reaction like, why in the world are we walking to the sign and the roadway and not going to the club if they truly are going clubbing? It is because it is a lie. She knows exactly what is going on. You know exactly the type of conversations that are happening inside that black Chevy Impala. The homicide scene. You have seen video of this many times now. I'm not going to show it again. But again, there is that coordination. You saw the USF poll cam. It is their car, the defendant, and Isaiah Chance in that silver Chevy Cruze that is following behind the victim and the two other vehicles with the victim. They don't pull into the home to suites because they're not the gunmen. They don't have any of the shooters in their car. They have to wait. You know that there is, again, communication that has to be happening between those two vehicles. It is no coincidence that at two locations where the victim is, the silver Chevy Cruze appears, and then shortly thereafter, the black Impala appears. And then at the third location, that is not ever advertised, never advertised anywhere. They just go to those hotels to get a room. The only way, the only possible way that Sean Gathright and that black Chevy Impala could possibly know where the victims are, because you know he's tracking them. You saw from his phone, he's trying to get this Kayla Enright or his sister to be able to call somebody who's with Six to find where he is earlier in the night when he's at the Airbnb. They're trying to get an address. There's only two locations they know where Charles Jones is going to be, and that is at Teasers and Truth 18. The only way the shooter, Sean Gathright, and the other two shooters in that black Chevy Impala could possibly know where the victim is because the silver Chevy Cruze, who has been following that car all along from Truth 18 to the home to suites, called them and told them. And as soon as the black Chevy Impala makes that U-turn and goes into that McKinley entrance, the silver Chevy Cruze with the defendant and the victim go right into the entrance and do what they have been doing all night, and that is act as surveillance. They are eyes on the victim. Where is he? And the reason why the gunmen know exactly where the victim is because that silver Chevy Cruze drives right in front of it and know where the victim is at the time of the shooting. Principles. If the defendant helped another person or persons commit or attempt to commit a crime, the defendant is a principal and must be treated as if she had done all the things the other person or persons did if the state proved beyond a reasonable doubt the defendant intended to commit the crime and the defendant did some act or said something that was intended and that did incite, cause, encourage, assist, or advise the other person or persons to actually commit or attempt to commit a crime. That is an or there. They only have to do one of those things. Incite, cause, encourage, assist. She did more. She assisted. She did more than just assist. She participated. She was part of the tracking team, that cover for Isaiah Chance, so that he could actively stalk the victim all night. Incite, cause, encourage, assist, or advise the other person or persons to actually commit. And then again, if we have proven those two things, you have to treat her as if she had done all the things the other person or persons did. You have to treat her as if she had done all the things that Isaiah Chance did, all the things that Sean Gathright did, all the things that Davion Murphy did, and all the things that Rashad Murphy did. I want to go back to murder really quickly. We have three elements to prove. One thing that we never have to prove One thing that is not on the murder in the first degree elements, and that is motive. The state never has to prove motive. Motive is something that is in a person's mind. We may never know the reason why things are done, especially when the defendant is not willing to say why they did a thing. So that is something that is not an element of the offense. We never have to prove motive. But in this case, there is overwhelming evidence of motive. You have heard about this gang war. You have heard how it has affected her, and you have heard how it has affected her boyfriend. And he is a part of it. He is in it. And he is out for revenge. And she is doing everything that she can to assist him in achieving what he wants, and that is for Charles Jones, for Julio Foolio, to be shot and killed. This is the evidence in this case. We had cell phone evidence, we had video evidence, and which quickly led to all of them, led to Jacksonville, that led law enforcement to this gang war, was license plate readers. There is no doubt that that silver Chevy Cruze and that black Chevy Impala were in tandem. Not only are they at all of those locations here in Tampa when they were committing this crime, they drove down together. These are the same points of interest when they are hitting off of the same license plate reader. The defendant, when she is in that interview room with law enforcement, I told you, she never admitted what she did. Just because a defendant doesn't admit what she did doesn't mean we do not prove intent. Doesn't mean that there isn't evidence, that there isn't overwhelming evidence, proof beyond all reasonable doubt of her intent. And that is called consciousness of guilt evidence. Evidence of a defendant who purposely evades prosecution, who purposely lies to law enforcement officers to evade getting caught. That is called consciousness of guilt evidence. There is a reason why a person lies to law enforcement. That is called consciousness of guilt, and that is evidence of her intent. If she truly knew nothing about this incident, if she truly was an innocent bystander, then the truth will set you free. If she would have provided law enforcement officers all of the information and been honest with them, then that would have shown that she had nothing to hide, that she was not involved in this, and she would have no reason to lie. If she truly didn't know what her boyfriend and their friends were doing, there would be no reason to lie. The interview would look a lot different. It would look like, I literally was just there with my boyfriend. This is what his name is. This is who he was with. This is where we came from. Yes, there were 3 other people there. I don't know how they got there. What else can I tell you? Because you heard law enforcement. They know that she has not been in trouble before. And they are pressing her. And they are trying to impart to her the seriousness of the allegation and the proof against her. They already have the video footage. They already have her phone. They already know her involvement at the Airbnb. But there is lie after lie after lie, just like she did on that stand in this courtroom today. And there is only one reason she needs to lie, and that is because the truth is that she is guilty of first-degree premeditated murder and conspiring with all the defendants in this case to commit first-degree premeditated murder. There is no reason for her to forget how she gets in the door. And the detective may have had it wrong about her being the one to enter the access code. But what he certainly didn't have wrong is the lock code. That door is only unlocked 3 times. One by the person who first gets in and not captured on the video, and that's the one where you just see her walk in, because whoever, whether it was Isaiah Chance or Sean Gathright, very quickly exits or puts in the access code, gets in, and the door automatically locks behind. And she's coming along with her bag, and the door is shut, and knocking, and nothing happens. That matches up with the lock code. She goes off to the back, and then comes back, and somebody lets her in on the lock code. Then there is a lock code where it is open, as if somebody is checking to make sure the lock is closed, but they don't open the door. No video footage of that. No other video footage from that night of her going to the McDonald's. She leaves to go to the McDonald's. She comes back. She leaves with all of her co-defendants to hunt down Charles Jones, and she comes back. Why in the world does she have to lie to law enforcement that she's using a back door? Because she knows she is protecting Isaiah Chance. She is protecting Rashad Murphy. She is protecting Davion Murphy. She went to Raines High School, and she would have you believe that she has no connection to Spaz, to Joe Rod Adams. He was killed. She was talking to her friend, her good friend Jewel Jones, about that homicide, and their good friend Will wasn't killed. But he was shot in that same homicide of Spaz, Joe Rod Adams. And Joe Rod Adams is the little brother of Rashad Murphy and the cousin to Davion Murphy. And she would have you think and believe she has no idea who they are. Do you believe that? That she has no idea and had no conversation with either of them, and they all have the connection of a deceased person by the name of Joe Rod Adams. And in that 3.5 ride back to Tampa in the Uber with Rashad Murphy, she doesn't have one conversation with him. There are connection after connection to this gang war with all 5 of the co-defendants in this case. This Airbnb, she is lying to law enforcement about it because she is a part of it. She is in the loop, and she is covering for all of them. And she knows that she is covering for all of them, and she knows that they purposely knew that there was a video camera on that ring door. And regardless of whether law enforcement got it wrong about the door, they certainly got it right. She's the only one seen on it. Why in the world, if people are there on a just romantic reconciliation to get back together, when you have bags to unload and you are there for lawful purposes on vacation, you would park in the 2 spots designated for the apartment with the easiest way to carry bags in? They're right there. They're open. They're not taken. That is because they don't want to be seen on a ring camera in Tampa, less than 2 miles from the homicide scene, unloading those large, heavy bags that you saw Isaiah Chance and Sean Gathright load into that black Impala. They have to make sure nobody is seen on camera, and they go around to the back and go through a backyard, not even a walkway, through some grass to get to a back sliding door because they are all there to commit a crime. Again, she's covered. She's not involved in the gang. She can be seen on the ring camera. They can use her phone, because that is what the cover story is, right? That is the cover story. That is what she's sticking with. That is what she told law enforcement. that she's just there with her boyfriend, Isaiah Chance, and they're just tourists, right? That's what they tell the law enforcement officers in that interview room. We can drive anywhere. Tampa's a tourist city, right? Just a big coincidence. That's the cover story. That is another part of the conspiracy. And there certainly would be no reason to lie to law enforcement about the door at all unless she is in on it, unless she knows. If she doesn't know, then what she would have told the law enforcement officer is, oh, my boyfriend just walked in before me. I was there, but the rest of the night, for some reason, we used the back door, and she would give a reason. There is a reason she doesn't remember. There's nothing wrong with her mind. She doesn't have a memory issue. The one time she comes to Tampa and they're unloading and they're walking through the dark backyard every time to get in would be something that she would remember. And if she's not doing something criminal, she could tell and talk about it. Isaiah Chance is there, Davion Murphy, Sean Gathright. The Uber driver that takes us all the way from Tampa, where we finally know there are 5 people involved in this crime. There are 2 in the tracker vehicle, the surveillance vehicle, and there are 3 armed gunmen, and all of them stay at this Airbnb. Another lie. She lies to law enforcement. At first, it's just her and Isaiah Chance. It's just me and him, and you can listen to that audio again. Because she lies until she is confronted with evidence, and then the story changes. So it's not just her and Isaiah Chance, because they show her more evidence, and all of a sudden she knows, oh, they know Sean Gathright is there as well. They show him a photograph. And even though she has been in a car with him for 3.5 hours, and she has been in this Airbnb, she can't identify his photo. She will not give them any information, not a name. She would have you believe she only knows him as Little Bro. She won't give a description of him, and she certainly isn't going to pick out his photograph. But it is more evidence, not just their phone evidence. There is a witness that we now know and have the 5th person involved in this homicide, first-degree murder, and conspiracy, and that is because they take an Uber. And the Uber driver and the tracking, again, of license plate readers, we know that the Uber driver who gives Detective Ramos his trip ticket, who took them from Tampa, they had one stop at a gas station, but the same 3 people he picked up is the same 3 people for $187.51 that he takes to Sean Gathright's house, where we find all of the evidence of those firearms in his house. And we then find Alicia Andrews there, as well as Rashad Murphy for the first time, and again, Isaiah Chance. So the evidence in this case is overwhelming. And Mr. Harmon told you there is a mountain of evidence. And all of this evidence, the digital evidence, the video evidence, the cell phone evidence, the cell hawk mapping that you saw in this case, and the phone messages that you saw from her device show and bring to light the conspiracy that occurred in this case between all 5 of the co-defendants acting together and conspiring together. The conspiracy count in this case: to prove the crime of criminal conspiracy, the state must prove the following 2 elements beyond a reasonable doubt. The intent of Alicia Andrews was that the offense of first-degree murder would be committed. In order to carry out the intent, Alicia Andrews agreed, conspired, combined, confederated with Isaiah Chance, Sean Gathright, Rashad Murphy, or Davion Murphy, or other diverse persons to cause the first-degree murder to be committed either by them or one of them, or by some other person. It is not necessary that the agreement, conspiracy, combination, confederation To commit first-degree premeditated murder must be expressed in any particular words or that words pass between the conspirators. It is not necessary that the defendant do any act in furtherance of the offense conspired. This count is just the agreement. They don't have to actually commit it. They don't have to do an act in furtherance. This is just the agreement to do it together. And you know, based on their actions, that they all conspired to do this. Rashad Murphy, more evidence. This investigation led to Auburndale in Florida, Sean Gathright's grandmother's house, to Jacksonville, to his residence in Jacksonville, and it led to Gwinnett County as well, where he is caught in that silver Chevy Cruze that belongs to a person that dates one of his family members. And then Jacksonville Sheriff's Office also assisted and got photographs, a video from Walmart that occurred on 6/21, where the defendant is seen in there, Rashad Murphy, the co-defendant, Rashad Murphy, is seen there buying some stuff. And they see what he is wearing, and they compare it to the still videos that are taken in this case. More evidence again. He's not just driving the tracking vehicle. He's not just found with the tracking vehicle. More consciousness of guilt evidence. Gwinnett County Sheriff's Office locate him in the second suspect murder vehicle in this case in Tampa. And we are days later. He is far removed from Tampa. And he is in the silver Chevy Cruze. And what does he do when law enforcement authorities from Georgia approach? He flees. More consciousness of guilt. You don't need Rashad Murphy on recording saying what he did. His actions, just like Alicia Andrews' actions after this crime, show their guilt. He fled because he knew what he had done and he knew what vehicle he was in. The phone evidence in this case. Isaiah Chance, Sean Gathright, Davion Murphy, Alicia Andrews. You have all the evidence in this case about the phones. And just like the video evidence tracks them, just like all the photographs on the license plate reader of the silver Chevy Cruze and the black Chevy Impala, you have all of their phone and the timing advance showing that Alicia Andrews, Sean Gathright, Isaiah Chance, and Davion Murphy, they all traveled together to Tampa from Jacksonville. It was coordinated. There is a reason it is coordinated. This was the plan all along. That is the only reason they were in Tampa, and that was to hunt and kill and gun down Charles Jones. That is the only reason. All of the evidence in this case shows you that. You were able to see, based on the video evidence in this case for yourselves, that he was hunted, that he was stalked, and that he was tracked, and that it was well coordinated. The McDonald's video. COVID mask, another lie. It is not her clubbing attire. It is part of her disguise. It is a part of Isaiah Chance's disguise. Do you think Isaiah Chance has any concerns about his health? Why is he wearing a COVID mask? It is to mask his face. She gives every reason to law enforcement why it is that she's wearing a COVID mask. Again, every time she is confronted in that interview, she lies again. She says that she's concerned about her health, and then because of all the smoke in the clubbing. You saw from this video at the McDonald's that her co-defendant, Davion Murphy, the driver, is sitting there puffing away while she is in the seat next to him, not wearing a COVID mask. She's not wearing a COVID mask when she gets into an Uber with a stranger and is in a car, a small confined space with him for 3.5 hours. She's not wearing a COVID mask when she gets out of that car. She's not wearing a COVID mask when she goes into the the Airbnb on Gazebo Pond Lane. But her phone tracks her everywhere, and that is why you get to see all of the video footage from that night. This was on the phone, again, showing them tracking and going back to teasers to stalk the victim. All of the license plate readers, all of the cell phone mapping, State's Exhibit 77, which you heard from Detective Ramos, they don't just rely on the records provided to them by the cell phone companies. They actually verify and confirm the accuracy of those timing of the cell phone records by seeing if they could provide visual evidence. You heard from the defense expert, and you heard from the defense attorney questioning the defense expert, saying like, oh, they purposely kept out Players Club. They didn't purposely keep out Players Club. You heard from Detective Ramos that not only him, there are other members of the Tampa Police Department looking for surveillance video based on the timing advance records of the defendant. They were hoping to get video evidence of her everywhere. You heard of all the places they went looking for and asking for videos. That is what they were scouring. They were looking at the timing advance, trying to see where she had been, and they are following that path to see if they could get video footage of the suspects. And you saw that they got it at McDonald's. You saw that they got it at the USF poll cam. But you heard from Detective Ramos that there were no video footage at this Players Club. You heard from their expert that they are in the vicinity of Players Club. That is just another lie that she is telling you on the stand. There is no evidence whatsoever that they are doing anything but staging, waiting for the victim again to go to another location. But to fit into her story that she's just here for clubbing and not another lie to law enforcement, she must have gone to some other club to ask a bouncer whether or not the price was too high for them to get in. So what is it? Is the price too high? So they didn't go in? So that would make 3 clubs that she didn't go in. And the whole purpose of her coming to Tampa was to go clubbing. Again, she is telling lie after lie, and you get to judge her credibility and determine whether or not you believe any single word that came out of her mouth. This is that photo taken at Truth 18. This is her leaving. And we did ask about the bag. Is any of the AR rifles in the bag? We are not suggesting that there is any AR rifles in the bag. What we are suggesting to you, again, is that she is assisting. She knows all of the people. They are unloading that car at the same time. That is a bag that comes from Sean Gathright's house. It is loaded from Sean Gathright's house into the black Chevy Impala, and then it is unloaded again into Sean Gathright's house. She's telling you on the stand today that that belongs to her boyfriend, Isaiah Chance. We see Isaiah Chance unload his vehicle. He never takes out a a pink duffel bag. Does it have the AR rifles in it? No. Does it have could it possibly have had clothes? We don't know. It is big enough to carry a firearm. It is big enough to carry ammunition. We don't ever have to prove to you what is in that bag. It is just another piece of evidence saying she is assisting them, she knows what is going on, and she is participating. She's not going to, she can't talk to any of these people. She can't have communication with any of these people, yet she can carry their bags out. She is comfortable with all of them. There isn't anything in these videos that suggests to you that she is afraid of any of them, that she is uncomfortable with any of them, or that she is scared of any of them. And I would suggest to you, when you're evaluating her testimony and what she said on the stand, it is full of not only lies but contradictions. Is she afraid of Isaiah Chance? Was she forced to go on this trip? Was she a victim of domestic violence? Is she controlled by him? Yet she wants to make sure, she doesn't live with him. She lives with her parents. And she can certainly tell him in a video and use language that isn't really suggestive of somebody who's truly afraid of somebody who can commit and control and make sure that they know every single thing that that person is doing. You judge that person's credibility and why it is they're telling you what they're telling you on that stand. Again, the cell phone mapping of her phone. Cell phone mapping of her boyfriend's phone. There's only one time when he's using it, and that is close in time to the murder. And you know that there is a desperate attempt to get a hold of the other car. You have that pick up the phone, and then sharing of location, and then a couple of uses very close in time to where it is critical to get information to the shooters and the black Chevy Impala at 4:41 and 4:52 a.m. in the morning. This is that silver Chevy Cruze, again, with some unique identifying information. But you don't need that photograph. You don't need the license plate readers to know and to be able to be convinced overwhelmingly that she was in that vehicle, because she told you herself in that interview with law enforcement, and you heard it. You heard before they really started confronting her with the evidence when they showed her photographs that she admitted that she was in those videos. So there is no doubt that she participated in her crime. There is no doubt as to her identity and her participation and everything that she has done in this case. And based on all the facts and all the circumstances of the evidence in this case, there is no reasonable doubt that she intended for this crime to be committed and that she assisted. She did more than assist. She participated as part of that surveillance team, posing as just normal, everyday people just happening to be walking in a parking lot so that her boyfriend, Isaiah Chance, would not be detected by the rival gang, Mr. Rich Off War. There is no doubt that there was a war in Jacksonville involving both of these gangs, and that it came to Tampa when the defendant and all of her co-defendants brought it here. She is guilty of first-degree premeditated murder as a principal in this case, and she is guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree premeditated murder. And all of the evidence shows and proves to you beyond all reasonable doubt that she is guilty.